pick it up, let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Hand of the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
All right, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Who is ready on this Wednesday episode? Thank you, everybody, for being with us as we get started. It's going to be a crowded show today. I've got two guests coming up in a half an hour at about 7:30, and then I've got our regular Wednesday spot with Donovan O'Neil from AFP-Ohio, and I'm looking forward to that for obvious reasons because you're coming with me, right? You're going to be on the bus? You're going to be with me on the way down to Columbus on June 22nd to celebrate America 250. Going to be a huge event, one small step with AFP and Concerned Veterans for Ohio. I'm very much looking for Concerned Veterans for America, rather. I'm looking forward to that a lot. That'll be at 8:30, that conversation with Donovan. But our first conversation is coming up in half an hour. We're going to talk about we're not talking about Pride Month, in all seriousness. It just so happens that this is really good timing for this conversation. I've been kicking it around with Mark Sutherland, who's been a guest on this program for, a few different times over the course of the last couple of years. I met Mark through Patrick Wood, my co-host on The Statesman, Citizens for Free Speech. And Mark is a Brit. And he is in the States doing a documentary right now on Dr. Melanie Crites-Bachert. And Dr. Bachert is a surgeon. She is a pelvic specialist. She is a reconstructive surgeon. And what does that sound like? It means she does. All right? Yeah. It sounds like she would be one of the ones doing the quote-unquote bottom surgeries for trans victims. No, she refuses to do any of that stuff, which is what makes her unique. She is a specialist in that area. She won't do it. And she's got a fantastic story to tell. I cannot wait to listen and learn from her. So Dr. Melanie Crites-Bachert and filmmaker Mark Sutherland will both join us here in about 22 minutes, and I'm looking forward to that conversation as well. So that's where we are, and it just so happens, like I said, that it times up with Pride Month. Yeah, there you go. There she is. And you can probably see on the opening graphic too, if you were looking at it as we were coming in. There she is, Dr. Melanie Crites-Bachert. She refuses, like I said, to mutilate little kids. So is it the transing of America, as I have on the left side there, or the detransing of America? Because surgeons like her are stepping up, and the trans movement is going to slowly fade away into the dustbin of history, which begs the question, how will it be remembered, this era and time that we allowed to happen on our watch? That's just a big deal. We're going to talk about that with her and with Mark Sutherland. And as I said, a little bit later on, Donovan O'Neil from, I tell you what, no matter how many times I tell the AI generator that makes my graphics, it misspells O'Neil every time. This time I put an extra L on the end. Anyway, doesn't matter. But we have a few important notes to get to this morning, including I have not said a word about the California races, mainly because I want Bugs Bunny to do to California what he once did to Florida. And if you're old enough to remember the Looney Tunes, you remember when Bugs actually took a saw and cut off Florida and let Florida drift away. There was, for whatever reason, I don't remember the premise of that particular cartoon plot, but I remember it, very distinctive, and it was pretty freaking hilarious because everything Looney Tunes was. I want Bugs to hop on over to California and slice. In fact, if I'm being honest, I don't know if it even needs to do a cutout for California alone. You might as well just saw that whole western, border, if you will, the western border states off from Washington to Oregon all the way down to California and just let it float out into the Pacific. Because that's how insane, how bat bleep crazy the left is on the West Coast. It makes honestly, you could say it makes the East Coast filled with Mamdani and Platner and Mikey Sherrill and the rest of the lunatics. It makes them look actually sane by comparison. That's how radically nut jobby and wild they are out in California and the entire West Coast. West Coast is what I meant to say, not Western border. But yeah, you get the point, right? So California is just, to me, it's too far gone. It's beyond saving. So I didn't put any time into this. I didn't pay any attention to any of this on the program over the course of the last few weeks leading up to yesterday's primaries in California. But now that we have a couple of results, they're worth talking about just for a moment. In the Los Angeles mayor's race, and see, already I'm going to get upset and I'm going to get frustrated and I'm going to say, never mind, I don't want to talk about it anymore, because what they still did, even though it was a tiny number, 34% or whatever, still the majority of Los Angeles voters voted to give Karen Bass another run at this. Now, this is a jungle primary where, as you know, the way they do it in California, the top two vote getters from a pool of candidates, regardless of party, the top two vote getters in a primary face off in a general election if one of them doesn't win at least 50% of the vote. So the incumbent mayor, Karen Bass, who let the Pacific Palisades burn because she left the reservoirs completely dry and refused to allow forest management and brush management to be carried out, they still voted for her. Los Angeles is a pit of homeless, drug addict, needles, piss and ish all over the streets. It's a disgusting place to be. It used to be one of the most beautiful places to be in the world, but Los Angeles is trash, and Karen Bass has largely been responsible for the trash and the fires. And still the majority, even though it wasn't over 50%, more people voted to give her another term in this primary than anybody else. The good news is, and the only reason I'm willing to talk about it now, despite the frustration with Los Angelinos being just complete and utter dolts for allowing Karen Bass to even sniff a runoff, the only good news is that Spencer Pratt, who's kind of a Republican, kind of an independent, he knows if he runs really fully Republican, he doesn't have a chance because of what they are in Los Angeles. but he is a Republican running kind of an independent campaign, and he made the runoff as well. So it's going to be Karen Bass and Spencer Pratt, and he has run a very, very interesting campaign. He's got a little bit of celebrity to him as a former reality show guy, but he has really, really pulled back the curtain on a lot of what's going on in LA politics. So I've got frustration from the fact that Karen Bass moves on, but I've got some at least modest, hope, I guess, that Spencer Pratt will maybe be able to take her down in a runoff election. The votes are still being counted officially, according to the reporting that I have here. Bass advances to the runoff election. She failed to capture 51% of the vote needed to win outright in her bid for re-election. Like I said, that's the shameful part. She's down at like 34%. But nonetheless, it was more than Spencer Pratt, and the other candidate is Nithya Raman, who is another Democrat and a radical one at that. But Spencer Pratt, it looks like, is going to finish second, and he is going to be able to take her on in November in the general election now. So the good news is there is at least a Republican-esque person in the race, rather than Karen Bass being given the full keys to another term in Los Angeles. And then the other one is for a bigger spot, obviously, because it's for governor of California. And you probably remember Steve Hilton from when he used to be on Fox News. Good guy. I always enjoyed him. I always enjoyed his commentary, usually on the weekends. He gave all of that up over a year ago to run for governor of California. Now, we haven't had a governor in California as a Republican since Arnold, and we all have different opinions about Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was much more of an establishment Republican than a real true conservative Republican, but he won because of name recognition, because he is Arnold, and they got the governor. He has since fallen out of favor with a lot of us, especially during COVID, when he uttered the famous words, and I won't say the word, but F your freedoms. When he was trying to convince everybody to take the shot and to barricade and stay home and not go to church and all these other things. And people said, well, we have the freedom to move about. And he said, F your freedoms. So he was completely caught up in the COVID crap as well. But anyway, I digress. There hasn't been a sniff of a Republican since then. And now Steve Hilton is in a battle with Xavier Becerra, who used to work in the Biden administration, one of the most pathetic pieces of garbage ever to work in an administration. But again, we are talking about California. So Steve Hilton is a former British political strategist, basically, and like I said, commentator on Fox News. He's got Donald Trump's support, and he's in the mix here. He's in the race, and so this was a good night for him. Just being a Republican in California, it's going to be very, very difficult. But Tom Steyer, the billionaire left-wing nut job, is a part of this. Becerra, as I said. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco was in this mix as well. So we don't have the full and final results yet, but it looks like Steve Hilton and Becerra are in the lead, and more votes are still being counted. So a chance there, if nothing else. And it's the only reason I'm bringing it up, like I said, is because I haven't talked about California. We got enough problems here. We've got Mike DeWine as our governor. We've got Amy Acton wanting to be our governor. We've got pieces of garbage blue mayors all over the place, too. We could just focus on strictly Ohio and then never have enough time. So I haven't done anything California-like, but I wanted to do a little bit of California stuff this morning because of the elections last night. So a little bit of fingers crossed, modest hope, but not very much for Republican Steve Hilton and Republican-esque mayoral candidate Spencer Pratt. Okay, but what I do want to get into, there was a lot of action on Capitol Hill yesterday. I told you I've got guests at the bottom of the hour, so I got to dive in right quick. So go ahead and pull up number one there, Dylan, if you would, as we take a look at DHS Homeland Secretary, Homeland Security Secretary, Mark Wayne Mullen. He was on the Hill yesterday fighting with Democrats. Marco Rubio was on the Hill yesterday fighting with Democrats. Tom Homan is fighting with Democrats everywhere he goes. I've just got a little bit of audio that I want you to enjoy because it's always fun to watch conservative voices taking down and shutting up lunatics. And that's exactly what we have. Lunatic Senator Chris Murphy was the Democrat leader in the congressional committee, or senatorial committee rather, and he gave this scathing review of DHS and ICE before allowing Mark Mullen to deliver his opening statement. And Mark Mullen basically was not having it. And he just brought the fire right back at Chris Murphy about our ICE agents and about the job of DHS. So I want you to listen to this. Go ahead.
Senator Murphy, the outlandish claims you made there is just flat wrong. You start saying we're breaking the law, and you really start looking at it, and we're enforcing the laws that Congress did pass. That's reckless. When you start saying it's unconstitutional, what's unconstitutional that we're doing? We swore to uphold the Constitution, just like you swore to uphold the Constitution. For you to throw my 275,000 employees underneath DHS and with a broad stroke like that is reckless and irresponsible on your part. We're doing the job that Congress gave us the authority to do. And our men and women out there every single day is enforcing the laws. If you don't like the laws, you can change them. We're not picking and choosing which laws we enforce. We're simply enforcing the law, period, full stop. When you throw out reckless terms and you start referring to our agents as being dangerous, unconstitutional, and lawless, that's why our agents' death threats are up by 8,000%. I know that's not what you want, but your political theater, that's what it causes. When you start looking at assaults on our officers, they're up by 1,300%. Senator Murphy, is that what you want? I don't think it is. I really don't. I do. I understand the political theater. I understand wanting to get sound bites. And that was obvious because the whole time he was giving your testimony, he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at a camera. I get that. I get it. If you have bigger political ambitions, fine. Just say it. But don't do it at the expense of my officers. We want to really talk about funding. You haven't funded my officers. CBP and ICE has been willing to do the job for free. Why? Because of a reckless administration. Prior to President Trump coming in and saving America, you had a reckless administration that was destroying America by letting millions of illegals into our country. We're a nation of laws, and we're going to enforce those laws. What separates us from other countries is because people respect the rule of law.
I'm very impressed so far by what I'm hearing from Mark Mullen. We've got to see much more in terms of the action. But
nobody
so far,
ever cast a vote for Amy Acton.
Hold on, Earth. Tighten it up. So, what I'm hearing from Mark Mullen, especially just confronting the left-wing senators like Chris Murphy on the spot in, from the Hill in those hearings yesterday, that was exactly right. Did you hear those numbers again? 8,000% increase in threats against agents, over a 1,300% increase of assaults on federal agents. And then you've got Chris Murphy going up there before senatorial committees on C-SPAN and elsewhere, calling them thugs, calling them, killers and defaming, excuse me, and degrading them in ways that, that are just simply indefensible, because all they are doing is carrying out federal law. They are enforcing the laws passed by people like Chris Murphy, who is a senator. And as Mark Mullen said, you don't like the laws, change the laws, but you cannot have the laws and then expect that the enforcers of the laws to not do their jobs. So Mark Mullen just blasted, deservedly so, Chris Murphy yesterday. That wasn't the only one. Let's move over to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, number 2. He was testifying in another Senate committee, and another Democrat Senator Rosen decided to try to shame him and to make it appear as though he is sleeping on the job as Secretary of State, meaning that he is not engaged or invested in the negotiations between the president, the United States, and the Iranians. Marco Rubio is somebody you do not want to tangle with, especially when you don't have the facts. Let's watch this one, number 2.
You were at a party with President Trump in Miami. Instead of accompanying Vice President Vance to Pakistan,
for negotiations.
What party was I at? I was at a
It's
party?
publicly reported, and there's photos there.
But
In
what
fact,
party?
Steve
No,
Witkoff
but
and
you're going to
Jared
say that. I'm going to
Kushner-
answer it. I'm going to answer
But
that
let me
question because
finish
that's an
my
absurd statement.
And
I was not at a
as I
party.
finish my paragraph,
All right.
he can answer.
Because people are going to
In fact,
slander me. I'm going to answer
Steve
it.
Witkoff and Jared Kushner, both of whom were never confirmed by this body to be America's diplomats, accompanied the vice president in the negotiations. Even Iran's foreign minister was not there, yet was there, and you were not. I just feel that's embarrassing for us, and it's embarrassing for you. So, Mr. Secretary, Congress represents the American people. We have the power to confirm who represents America abroad. We confirmed you to be our Secretary of State. We confirmed you to be in the negotiations that are happening. And it's just unthinkable to me that you are missing high stakes negotiations or that you're not involved. It's sad.
Senator Rosen, your time's up.
Okay,
But
so let me just
Senator, Secretary Rubio.
You're
should have the
100%
opportunity to
inaccurate
reply.
and 100% wrong. Here's why. Number one, the vice president of the United States was there, and he wasn't confirmed by us, and he was elected by the American people. Okay, he is the second in line of the presidency of the United States. He was present. Mr. Witkoff is the president's envoy for negotiation for peace deals. Mr. Kushner is a private citizen that serves as an advisor on these functions. They were the team that we sent to Pakistan. I was not at a party. Where I was is next to the president, because in the midst of those negotiations, I was in communications with them. And in fact, I think there is media reporting from that evening on how on multiple occasions I went into a back room, I came back out and spoke to the president and was constantly updating him. On that evening, I spoke to Mr. Kushner and our negotiating team and Mr. Witkoff on at least 6 occasions, including twice on a secure line from the phone they had access to over there. So you don't know what you're talking about. You're just
Senator
making
Rosen,
stuff up.
he has the floor.
I know your
please.
staff wrote up this cute statement for your TikTok video, but it's not true and it's not real. That's not what happened. Okay, I'm the National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. I was co-located with the president in the midst of a high-stakes negotiation so that I could immediately inform him about events occurring halfway around the world. I was where I needed to be at that moment because we had a very capable team on the ground in Pakistan, led by the vice president of the United States.
You don't tangle with Marco Rubio and live to tell about it. Character assassination is he's a sniper. He is brilliant, and he is not going to suffer fools like this gladly. She tried to pin him down as if you're not engaged. He was right at the right hand of the president. Are you going to say that the president isn't engaged in the Iranian negotiations as well? How stupid can you be to try to pull that out? And then to think that Marco Rubio, who has proven, if nothing else over the last year and a half, is that there is nothing he is not on top of. The memes are everywhere. The memes are, excuse me, kind of hilarious. They're legendary. And Marco Rubio basically picking up every job. Every time somebody it leaves or is fired or whatever, Marco Rubio picks up the job too. The idea that he was at a party while some high stakes negotiations were going on is simply it's a joke. It would be funny if it weren't so serious. The idea that Marco Rubio is not engaged is, sorry, I just had to try to handle something real quick. Looks like we got a little bit of a scheduling snafu here, so I want to make sure that we're all in the same page here. So we got to check that out with my guest. Okay. So anyway, Marco Rubio just, again, laying it all out there about who he is, where he is, what he is doing, and who the team on the ground is, and just completely refuting and disputing every single thing that a left-wing Democratic Senate committee member had to say. I want to get a couple of other quick ones here, if I can. Go to number 5 now, if you would. Now, you know what? I'm going to take that back. Dylan, I'm going to actually pause here, because it is 7:27 and my guests are going to be on at 7:30. So what I want to do here is I want to hold off on that last video there. We're going to get some things set up here. I want to remind you first about our friends who are our partners, foundational partners of this program, including Mark King, who is just the man when it comes to Medicare. For nearly 4 decades in Northeast Ohio, senior citizens have looked to Mark King for guidance. And for over the last 5 years, since I first met Mark King, I have sent people to Mark King for guidance on how to figure out how to get the most out of their Medicare plan while paying the least. What coverage, what benefits, what services are available to you, and for the lowest amount of cost. And that's what Mark does. The best part about it is Mark doesn't charge you a nickel for his services, okay? You call Mark King at that phone number on your screen and you say, I'm aging into Medicare for the first time. And guess what? He will explain to you exactly from Jump Street, exactly what you need to know. And he'll make the complex simple, hence the name of the business, Keeping Medicare Simple. If you are already an enrollee in Medicare, and maybe you just don't know if you're getting the best deal for you. What if something of better is available? And what if you can change either within one of the enrollment periods or without? Mark will guide you. That phone number there is invaluable. Save it. All right. 440-832-8936. That is the number. And make sure that you log on to the website, keepingmedicaresimple.com. All right. I'm going to take a very short time out here so we can come back here with our friends who are going to be joining us to talk about, well, again, it's just coincidental. We're not talking about Pride Month, but we're going to be talking about protecting kids from Pride Month in a manner of speaking. We're going to talk to Dr. Melanie Crites-Bachert. I keep wanting to mispronounce her name and say Bachton, but it's not, it's Bakken. And also Mark Sutherland, our British filmmaker friend. We're going to talk to them coming up next, right after this, Strictly Speaking.
Vest on, boots laced, another name on the paper, another hard case. Got a wife back in Lubbock, kids in their Sunday best. I ain't some villain in a movie, I'm a man doing my best. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody saved today. You hold that sign, I hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw the line in the sand. Saw you playing for cameras, shoving phones in my crew, spitting words like traitor, like you know what we go through. When you circle that transport, like it's some kind of game, there's a scared little girl in the backseat, you don't even know her name. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody saved today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand. Then you shove them into harm's way. You turn a bus into a battlefield. I'm just trying to get them home today. Call me every name you can think of, I'll still show up when it hits the fan. When the dust clears, when fear's near, we'll see who really ran. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody saved today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. So we had a little bit of a scheduling snafu there. We had one person a day early. We are going to talk to that guest tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that. But today, we're going to dive right in now, as I promised, and to talk a little bit about saving kids. I texted my friend Mark Sutherland a couple of different times this morning to make sure that I was going to pronounce Dr. Crites-Bachert's name correctly, and I spelled it out phonetically. Is it going to be Bachert or Bachert? Neither one was right. I looked it up elsewhere and found it to be Bachert. And so Dr. Melanie Crites-Bachert is joining us now with our friend Mark Sutherland. So let's bring them both onto the program. Dylan, I'm going to ask you to square that up for me, please, on the screen. I've got Dr. Now, let's keep them back on the stage, please. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. I'm hearing somebody's speaker in the background there. If we could turn that down, Dr. Crites-Bachert or Mark, I'm hearing a speaker playing. All right, there we go. That's much better. Thank you so much. So first, Mark, because you set this all up for us. Good morning. Welcome back. How are you, sir?
Hello, sir. How are you? Sorry, can you speak up a bit, because I'm having a bit of a problem on the sound.
Yeah,
but,
I don't want to shout. I should be loud and clear, but if you can tinker with that a little bit.
It's me. But the reason I just turned my headphones off. Anyway, Bob, thank you so much for having us both on. It's good to be with you, and I love the title of the show, which is absolutely right. And dear Melanie's the expert on this. I'm just helping to produce a documentary on this subject. But the transing of and detransing of America, I think that is an incredible title. And just to quickly say that I'm very new to this space, but also there's now a personal connection, as this has reached my family. All I can say is that this is of epidemic proportions in a way that I have been personally shocked by, and having had the privilege to talk to a number of people over the last few weeks, we've been filming a number of people, that then re-emphasizes and just confirms my feelings on this, Bob. And I don't think many people a lot of people realize, of course, the severity of this. They've been talking about this for a long time, including, Bob, as you've had the wonderful pleasure I have of meeting a mutual friend now, contact Marsha Metzger and others. And of course, dear Alex Newman has been talking about this and others in this space for a long time. But I want to hand it to Melanie, because Melanie is the surgeon and the expert on this, and is totally at the sharp end, hence why we're having this conversation, my friend.
Yeah, exactly right. And before we turn it to Melanie, I want to give a brief little introduction. Dr. Melanie Crites-Bachert, board-certified urologist and pelvic reconstructive surgeon. She built a reputation as one of the nation's leading specialists in complex pelvic health and reconstructive procedures, a 3-time Portland Monthly top doctor, a published researcher, inventor, and founder of 360 Pelvic Health Institute. She has spent her career repairing damaged anatomy while helping patients recover from failed or complicated surgeries. That's not why she's here, though. She's here because of the type of surgeries she will not perform. And that's what this is all about, is protecting kids from barbaric bodily mutilation. And that is what we are talking about, and why we have the tie-in here to Pride Month. So, Doctor, is Melanie okay? Doctor, I'll just call you Doctor. How does that work? Melanie, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Mark has raved about you and told me for quite some time, we need to have Melanie on my program to talk to this audience. And I said, let's make this happen. And so I'm so glad he set it up. And I thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I just gave that brief little intro. I kind of curated some things from one of your bios. Give us a little bit more. Tell us what you do, how long you've been doing it.
Mm-hmm. So I've been in this space. I'm a urologist and was fellowship trained to perform pelvic reconstructive procedures. So, transgender fellowships have been around maybe 8 years. So the fellowship that I did, if you were going to go into transgender medicine as a urologist, the fellowship that I did is the one that you did, because you learned to reconstruct the entire pelvis. So take things that have been damaged and put them back in the proper place, basically for healing purposes, to basically take a damaged tissue from a pathological condition, strictures, or birth defects, things like that, and and reconstruct the entire pelvis. But what has happened is over the years, and most recently within the last 10 years, we've seen an explosion of individuals wanting to pursue transgender medicine. And that is basically taking normal healthy tissue and deconstructing it and then putting it back together to create something completely artificial that doesn't really function normally, is fraught with complications. So I was in private practice for nearly 15 years. I used my skills for healing. I never had a desire to do any of these procedures, although I am trained. I do know how to do them. I just chose to use my skills for healing. And so when all of this happened with COVID, I decided that, it was time for me to change directions a little bit. And I saw what an epidemic that this had become. And so I ended up joining the medical freedom fight. I am licensed in all 50 states and DC. And in fact, the photo that you showed of me there is actually an older photo, because what I did is I would go around and fill in at hospitals that needed a urologist to help beef up their urology program, that they needed some help. So that's what I decided to start doing. And while I was doing that, I began this campaign to speak out against this transgender ideology, and really have a passion for saving children and actually giving children the truth. I'm not afraid to tell them what their biological sex is.
Thank you. That's a great backgrounder and a great start to this. And I cannot wait to see the film that Mark is producing and directing and gonna make available to us about you. But briefly, first of all, I get very, very frustrated when this subject is brought up and we hear people who are in this pro quote unquote gender affirming care camp talk about top surgery and bottom surgery. They try to use that very generic terminology to say, oh, it's the bottom surgery. Holy goodness, you cannot even imagine how misleading that is. Oh, it's just a simple, oh, they're going to do my bottom surgery next. We're talking about major, not only reconstructive surgery and plastic surgery, we're talking about sealing off organs, removing healthy organs, and all of these kinds of things. You don't have to be as graphic and as detailed as let me rephrase. You can be as graphic and detailed as you want to be, but you don't have to go that far. But when somebody says bottom surgery and they call it gender affirming care, what are they not saying, doctor?
They are not at all talking about the complexity and severity of these surgeries. They're giving them cutesy little terms, like you said. Oh, it's just a bottom surgery. No, it is cutting off a penis and forming a vagina. It is creating completely artificial organs. It is cutting through the urethra and separating it from the bladder, which is, the urethra is the tube that connects the bladder to the outside of the body to allow you to pass urine. It is, in some instances, it is completely reconnecting that and rerouting it. It is for men, taking out the prostate in the process, or boys, taking out the prostate in the process. This is anything but routine surgery, and it is not reconstructing anything. It is taking normal healthy tissue, deconstructing it, break it down, and then making something completely artificial. It takes months to heal from it. If you do heal from it, if you heal properly from it. And that's part of the issue, is nobody talks about the complications. And for instance, if a biological male is trying to change his appearance to appear as a female, you have an artificial vagina that then you have to dilate. So it is intensely painful. You have to dilate this orifice every day, or you are going to not have a functional organ. You're not going to have functional tissue, in this instance. So it's not as cut and dry, no pun intended, as the activists would have you to believe, or the doctors, shame on them, would have you to believe, because they are not getting true informed consent. They're not telling the untold story.
Can we talk just for a second, Doctor, about reversible, what's reversible and what is not reversible? I did a couple of different hour-long interviews with Chloe Cole, who's maybe one of the most famous detransitioners, because she's willing to tell her story. And she has told the story, not only her own story, but those of others that have gone much, much worse than even hers have. And we're talking about lifetime medical problems, particularly due to the reconstructive and destructive and then reconstructive surgery, again, quote unquote, on the bottom, as they say, that these people are never, ever, ever healthy again.
Correct.
Can you speak to your experiences with detransitioners and what they are dealing with?
Mm-hmm. They are dealing with lifelong medicalization, meaning they are going to be on hormones or other medications for the rest of their lives to help balance their hormones. And further, if they have undergone surgical procedures, each of these patients average 2.6 surgical procedures over a lifetime. The ones that I have met have had far more than 2.6 procedures. Because there are such complications. Once you cross the line of surgery, that's irreversible. In the instance of, for instance, mastectomies, and we're going to call it what it is, mastectomies, double mastectomies. It's not top surgery. It's not, let's not all be cutesy about it. It is mastectomies. These are procedures that we are performing on individuals for cancer, for pathological conditions. This is not a cutesy term. So when somebody undergoes a mastectomy, they are losing normal, healthy breast tissue in these instances because it's not being done for cancer. Yes, you can have breasts put back on, but they're not normal healthy tissue. They are prosthetics. The same thing. If you're a man and you have your testicles cut off, you're not getting that back, and you lose the ability to make testosterone. Just like women who've had hysterectomies, which is removing the uterus and or the ovaries. If you have these surgeries, you lose the ability to essentially to make estrogen. So you are on medication for a lifetime. And then, as I said, the surgeries in and of themselves, even if you wanted to retransition, so not necessarily, not the term detransition, but if you want to retransition back to your biological appearance, that's going to be very difficult as well, because yes, just like breasts, you can refashion something that has an appearance, of what it used to be, but it will never function normally. You will likely have, significant pain associated with it. I even know individuals who have undergone these surgeries that I've met that actually now have bags on their bellies to collect stool and to collect urine, because surgeries have gone horribly wrong. They've had awful complications, and now they're relegated to living like that for the rest of their lives. And that's not pleasant. I mean, just ask anybody that's had to undergo these particular procedures and live a lifetime like this because of cancer situations. You know, they do it for survival. These individuals elected to do this. These individuals with, you know, what can only be termed as a mental illness have chosen to do this, but unfortunately were not given all of the facts and are now, you know, having to live like this. And I have to question, if they were given all of the information, would they have made the decision knowing that this was a very real possibility?
Well, what you're talking about right now is informed consent, right? That's the one thing that is always missing from this, particularly when you're talking to children who cannot give. That's why they can't sign a contract under the age of 18. They cannot, you know, they cannot agree to a number of things under 16. And yet they're, you know, parents, doctors, people in your profession, physicians who used to actually live by and have to take something called the Hippocratic Oath, which is a promise to do no harm, do no harm. And yet they are harming these young people without informed consent being ever given because the kids are too young to even know better.
Correct.
Mark Sutherland is our friend. He is a British filmmaker and documentarian and more. And he is in the States now doing this documentary, biopic, if you will, on Dr. Crites-Bachert. And Mark, tell us a little bit about what you have found in the beginning portions of this film you're putting together.
Thank you. One of the privileges of being here, and especially working with Melanie, is the fact that we meet incredible people, and that's thanks to our dear friend Marsha, and also with Melanie's contacts as well, and some of my own. And to actually sit opposite and interview someone who has actually been through this operation was, for me, is a revelation, as well as it's difficult, because as Melanie has just backed up, you've just said it, Bob, do people actually know the facts? We're trying to drill down and find out and get down to what has gone on. And when we have the privilege of putting on camera people like Audrey Werner, Rhonda Miller, who are the real experts on the Kinsey Institute, we will then reveal so much of the history of what has gone on and the attack on the societal attack on America. This is real. This is not a conspiracy. This has been long term, including in my own country, within the UK. We haven't, I don't know if Melanie's talked about it, we'll just get into puberty blockers, and then I will go into a major statement. This is, when we look back in history, and I've said this, and I will say it publicly, and I will say it over and over again, and Melanie has just brilliantly laid it out, as you have said, Bob. This, sadly, all these surgeries are not reversible. If you are having body parts removed, other than a miracle from God, you are not going to have those parts brought back at all. It is irreversible. And you are on these drugs for the rest of your life, and potentially to the big pharma, and Melanie can speak into this. You are looking at each individual is worth $4 million, up to $4 million to medical fraternity, because they've gone through these operations, and then they have to have the drugs. Bob, this may sound a bit of a stretch to some, but not to us. There is no difference, in my humble opinion, to what Mengele and the experiments on the Jewish people and others within the concentration camps within Germany, Auschwitz, etc., than what we are seeing now. You talk about the oath that the doctors have to then take. We have then reached
not anymore, though, right? Not anymore.
Sorry?
They don't do the Hippocratic Oath anymore on the exiting medical school, do they, doctor?
In my medical school, they sure did. I haven't been to a recent medical school graduation. I'm an osteopathic doctor, so I take a little different oath, but the same premise of looking at things, looking at each individual from mind, body, spirit aspect. I haven't been to a medical school graduation lately, but to my knowledge, they do still take an oath to do no harm because they, under the auspices of affirming care, it's not considered doing harm.
Well, I have read in a number of spaces, and I've never been to a medical school graduation, so I will defer to you, but I've just read in a number of spaces that is no longer something they're required to take to recite that oath. And in part, because they don't want to acknowledge that cutting off healthy organs is harm. Even if it is quote unquote gender affirming, as you just said, there is no way, shape, or form that you can describe as cutting off a healthy organ off of a healthy body as anything but harmful. And then having to do reparative work after that to repair the harm that you just did. Correct. I mean, I don't, I'm boiling this down to a very simplistic language, but I think it's accurate. And from what I've read, that typical, physicians exiting medical school with MDs, they do not have to take that oath anymore. And Dylan, if you can look anything up on that while we're talking, by all means, let us know what you find. So Mark, go ahead and pick up where you left off when we interrupted that, because that oath, like I said, was really, really important. And it's been discussed by a lot of people like me and media figures questioning the quote unquote gender affirming care community, both in the medical side and just in the propaganda side, about that fact, about that you are doing harm. And that's why they'll tell you they don't say that oath anymore. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, the other issue is we're in the biggest spiritual battle of our lifetime. This is a spiritual battle and undermining of humanity, and that's why I've made those, I believe, very, very important historical links. All that information that Mengele gathered, all the information that Kinsey, in his appalling books, when he's writing a book of male behavior, female behavior. In Kinsey's book, there is the table 34. I'm not going to go into certain graphic details at this hour in the morning, but it's the fact that how he's then looking and investigating how young children can have, where he's turning around saying how many orgasms these when he's recording this with babies and children. And this then opens up a huge issues in regard to the whole thing of sexology and then looking at this. It's been a long road to reach this point. And I find it deeply appalling of what is going on. We are sacrificing young people. But here's the thing, Bob. These young people have parents. Where is the parents' involvement in this? We've had the privilege, we won't name them, had the privilege to meet parents that have been fighting this and very aware of this, bringing this to other parents' attention. And I am not coming down on parents to say all your fault, in the sense that they have a relationship with their children. They're trying to steer them through this. And the other thing is, Bob, of course, we all know with puberty, being teenagers, it's a difficult time, but it's a time that you then grow through. You don't turn around and go, well, if you're feeling like this, then basically we need to chop bits off you. That's it. If you are saying I'm a boy, no, I feel like a woman, this is the direction I want to go in, and vice versa, Bob. This is where we have reached. And as I say, this has actually touched me. I'm not going to that has also been another wake-up call. The other thing, the issue is this, and Melanie will correct me. The whole thing is, when you are 18, you are then seen as beginning that road of adulthood in regard to making decisions. You are then, if you want to then transition, you are then going to say, right, I'm going to start going on these drugs. So if you are a boy, to transition to a girl. If the other thing is, for a lot of, in certain cases, if you have got extra chromosome, if you are in that situation, then as a young child, a little bit of testosterone may have helped to sorted that problem out. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that when we have got two communities, we've got the medical and the surgeons that will do these operations, and then we've got all the mental health community as well, and they're both sort of blaming each other. Where is common sense here? Where is the common sense that actually saying doing this to children is totally and utterly wrong? And I will use that term, evil. When I have been told about in Harley Street in West London, I'm not going to name the name, but when I've been told about a particular individual doing operations of this kind, that then think that it's perfectly acceptable to maybe make some dramatic art out of performing these kind of operations. And I'm turning around and going, one is, where's the mental health of particular surgeons that do this? Where's the mental health of other mental health practices where they are not actually advising and saying this is not a good idea at all? And we have to go back and we have to have those awful, uncomfortable, well, actually, no, very important and uncomfortable discussions when we were talking about Mengele, when we're talking about all the experimentations that have then been gathered. And I'll just say this, as a dear friend Audrey Werner pointed out, and I'll just give this little piece of what we're doing. When Audrey turns around, and has also done that with another interview with me on a podcast, when she turns around and she names a Nazi that was feeding information as this individual was doing appalling acts on young Jewish children, etc., back to Kinsey, this information. This is how deep this goes. You and I, Bob, and Melanie and others listening to this are very, very aware of Operation Paperclip. It's not a conspiracy theory like so much. We run out of them. Sadly, this is true. And then we get into, and I know it's a phrase, it's an important phrase, and there's so much to unpack on that. But of course, it then goes into that phrase that many people use in regard to MK Ultra, in regard to mind control, in regard to leading to find out what were bodies like CIA, other three-letter agencies up to. This is documented. This is not, thank you for, the picture of Kinsey. This is who he is. This is not a conspiracy. And the other thing, Bob, there's a gentleman called John. Well, maybe I'm being too lenient there, calling him a gentleman. I think evil beast is the number one thing. You've got someone called John Money. John Money money came from New Zealand into America. There was an appalling case, and Melanie may be able to bring the names to me. There's a very sad case when a young boy was taken to be circumcised. The circumcision went wrong and ended up burning the young child's penis off. John Money, the parents knew of what John Money's talk on sexology, and in the end, as he said to these parents, "You'll bring up this boy as a girl." Now, there's loads of other facts and stuff to go in on this. Sadly, they were twins. And both of the other twin, who was still remained as a boy, in the end, they ended their life. Both of them ended their life with suicide, in regard to what the twin knew about his other twin brother. And of course, the twin brother, he was a boy, then is being brought up a girl, and all those issues. And sadly, they committed suicide. So let's just underline this again in regard to the mental health of this. And we are talking about young people, and we go back to the previous Biden administration. We go back to the Obama administration. We could say he's had 3 runs at it in regard to all the ideology that they have pushed along these lines, and no one talking about the mental health consequences. And I'll just end with this. When surgeons, and Melanie may talk about the case that was just won in New York, when surgeons are turning around saying, well, the mental health people said it's perfectly acceptable for me to go ahead with this, it's all fine. And I'm turning around and saying, where is your common sense to say that this kind of thing is fine? It is not fine. It is, as far as I'm concerned, I find it's evil, it's abhorrent, and without trying to do it, it then drives me to tears. This
Well,
is
it's experimental. Yeah,
Bob, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right, Mark. It's experimental, is what it is, and you correctly. And I've used the same analogy myself to Mengele and the experimentation that was done on children, particularly during the Holocaust. And Doctor, I want to go back to you about this, and I want to find out how many people like you are in the medical community who have the ability to do these surgeries, who are trained. It is in your area of expertise, these pelvic surgeries, reconstructive and so forth, but who refuse to. Because I'm calling this, episode of my show, the detransing of America, in the hopes that you are one of many or will spark others to say, look, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to perform. We've got legislative matters, that can sometimes say you can't do it, just depending on what state. But I want to know, is the medical community coming around to the harm that this does? There's that term again, and are refusing to do this the way you are.
Well, there's a difference between those of us that are actively speaking out about it, that refuse to do it, and that are actively shedding light on it, and the ones that have actively drunk the Kool-Aid for one reason or another. And that's a whole can of worms as to the reasons why surgeons go down this road and choose to pursue, this line of surgery. But there are the average surgeons out there, plastic surgeons and pelvic reconstructive surgeons, that are just going about their everyday business. They're not necessarily doing these procedures, but they may not have an opinion on it one way or another. They're just not doing it. Whether that's conviction or whether that is, whether it's personal conviction or whether it's just the way they've chosen to conduct their practice. I wish I could say that there were a whole cohort of us that would not do these procedures, but in fact, I can't say that, because we have transgender fellowships, and we've got a number of individuals going through these transgender fellowships. I mean, they accept 1 to 2 fellows. Each program accepts one to 2 fellows, maybe 3 fellows a year, to complete these procedure, or to complete these training programs, which, again, another whole can of worms. We can argue about what is adequate training and what isn't, because each transgender fellowship have different requirements as to who can apply for the program and who can go through the program. And what it comes down to is different types of surgeons, and not all surgeons are created equally, nor do they have equal amounts of training, and certainly they don't have equal amounts of training on the same sexes. So this is so multifactorial, and I wish I could say that there's a large cohort that that aren't doing these procedures. There are as I said, a number of surgeons not doing these procedures. They just don't choose to become vocal about it because it is a controversial topic. And like I said, whether they choose to not do these procedures because of personal conviction, or just the fact that they've fashioned their practice and they're fulfilled, performing other procedures, whatever that is, they're not speaking out about it either. So, they're remaining kind of lukewarm.
Let me ask you about the next step beyond that, not just not doing the procedures, but what about doctors helping detransitioners? Because the one thing one of the many things that stood out for me when I interviewed Chloe, and I've heard other interviews with other individuals who have been detransitioned, is that every doctor is there for them when they want to make this transition, when they want to start the drugs and when they want to start, the blockers, then the hormones, and then actually prep for the surgeries. We've got your back, we're going to do everything. And they literally do. They're there for them every step of the way. But what Chloe told me was, once the moment you say, I think I made a big mistake, I don't want to do this anymore, I need to go back to who I really was. I was led down a road I shouldn't have followed. I was misguided by some people. Help me get out. they ghosted her.
Yes.
They absolutely were not there for her from a financial standpoint. They were willing to perform cut rate jobs on them, taking less fees and so on and so forth. They had all kinds of assistance for these young people when they're going into the transition phase. But once they realize I screwed up, they're basically left on their own. Is that about accurate?
Yes, it is. Because in fact, I'm one of the very early members of an organization called Resilience Health Network, and that is an organization that was set up to help facilitate care and develop a network of providers to help facilitate care for individuals who have decided to go back to the appearance of their biological sex. So you would think that being organized by a group of providers, you would think that it would be easy, right? That we're in the know. We're the ones that have the colleagues. We're not, John Q. Public out here just, Googling where to find a doctor. I mean, any other individual, if you need an orthopedic surgeon and you don't know of anyone, you get on Google and you find one in your area. That's not the way this works. And even as providers, we are having a horrendous time trying to find colleagues that will take care of these individuals, because this is the thing. It was experimental medicine to begin with. There is no protocol for taking individuals down this road and proper dosing of medication and things like that, especially when you're dealing with children. There is no set protocol. So it was experimental medicine to take them down this road to begin with. It is just as experimental to take them back. And the problem is, with no set protocol, that says it all. When providers are there to do the damage and to provide all of these high potency medications, and then they refuse to take care of these patients, that right there is admission that they didn't know what they were doing. And that is the cold, hard fact of the matter, because it was experimental medicine to get them to that point. It is just as experimental to take them back to what they were, which they can never be what they originally were, because even hormones do some irreversible damage. But when they are ghosted, that is self-admission by the medical community that they didn't know what they were doing to begin with.
That's huge. That is so huge to hear you say. And because I'm going to make shorts out of this, and I'm going to promote the heck out of that part, because it is exactly that. And Doctor, one other question about the harm aspect. I have seen photographs, and a lot of people probably have as well, of the forearms of some of these and the calf muscles of some of these poor victims, and they're victims who decide to go forward with these surgeries. Flesh stripped all the way down to the bone, flesh and skin and so forth, in order to craft the fake body parts that they don't have. So they're harvesting their own flesh to put it in. It's Frankensteinian to me. I mean, I've literally made that comparison. It's not only is it Mengele-esque, as Mark was talking about, like Joseph Mengele, but it's a horror story of a mad scientist taking body parts and sticking them together in other places to create monsters, essentially. When somebody tries to detransition, and even if they don't, again, how does that heal? I mean, what are we talking about when we see, and Dylan, look it up. You can probably find some photos. Of the actual forearms of patients who have undergone this monstrosity, this bodily mutilation in order to create other body parts. And I don't understand how that heals, Doctor, and how they justify that either.
Yeah. So it takes a lot to heal, because remember, these particular procedures and the graft harvesting from other parts of the body, remember, those things were developed for pathological conditions, for patients, burn victims, and
right, for
patients who have had some sort of trauma, pathological condition. That's why those particular procedures were developed. they were not mainstream procedures. They were not something that people just walked in and said, "Oh, hey, I would like to, I would like to take a full thickness skin graft from my forearm to, to fashion a fake body part." I mean, it wasn't developed for that purpose. It was developed to help individuals heal from a trauma, generally, a life-altering trauma or a burn or a cancer. But the healing process is horrendous. And these individuals generally have nerve pain. They have to go undergo extensive physical therapy to regain the use of the body part for which the skin graft was harvested. So, in particular, the hand, undergoing physical therapy to help regain the use of the hand, because lots of times you lose the use of that particular body part until you put forth the work to, regain the use. I mean, this, like I said, this was done. These procedures were developed in an attempt to help individuals heal from a pathological condition. Who would sign up to do this electively? I mean, really, think about that. Who would sign up to do this willingly? It just astounds me. And these are the things that are passed off as just no big deal. We'll just refashion a penis. Okay, yeah, that not an easy process.
I'm gonna do something here real quick, and in fact, let me ask ask Mark Sutherland real quick while I pull this picture up here. It's going to be a little bit graphic, but I want people to see what we're talking about here. And while I pull that up, I want to get back to Mark. Mark, what trend do you see this taking? Because over the course of, I don't know, 5, 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it's been, since the real massive Pride Month, here we are in the third day of quote unquote Pride Month, and more celebrities, like Dylan had a picture, a video up there of what's her name, the singer? Jennifer Lopez. Yeah, she's got a trans kid who just came out, I guess. And I saw some other actress, I don't know, a few weeks ago, some other actress has 4 kids. 2 of them are trans, 1 of them is non-binary. They're literally for clout and for attention as what they are. So many of these, celebrities, they're willing to sacrifice their kids' physical and mental well-being because it is simply statistically impossible for something like gender dysphoria, which strikes what, doctor? Less than 0.1% of the population actually have a mental condition called gender dysphoria. That a parent has multiple kids in their family with that.
They better go play the lottery.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I guess my question, Mark, is what, from your research on this and making this film about Dr. Crites, I'm going to say your name wrong again, Bachert. I wanted to say Bachton for some reason, but Bachert. But Mark, what direction do you see the trend going now after this recent number of years of really expanding this transition nonsense?
You raised a very good point. I'm not going to name other actresses, actors, and even people in the music world in the UK who then turn around and say, well, my children are non-binary. And I suppose I'm coming back to parents as a parent myself. We have huge responsibility in here. And of course, one of the big dangers when it's growing, when our children are going through puberty, it's then other influences that we are trying to steer them away from. We have that responsibility. This is important. You cannot change from one gender to another. There are only 2 genders, and as a wonderful song says, by a friend of ours, Penny Marie says, there's only 2 genders and the rest are lies. So we need to get that song to you, Bob, so you can play it. You will thoroughly enjoy it.
I will absolutely.
The trend. My prayer is that this trend starts to stop now, that this stops, that we are raising awareness as we talked about. We've been brilliant. Thank you. I know how important this subject is to you, Bob, and just being graphic, saying how it is. We have to, because the graphic nature of this is so disgusting, so appalling. It's the only way to then draw people up. As Melanie just pointed out, when you are having a skin graft off an arm, it was there for a purpose in regard to burn, not to then create appendages that frankly don't work. And you've called it Frankensteinian. I am very, very concerned about what is happening in America, if not around the world, on a variety of different issues in America. The mental health aspect to this is beyond it. Within America, having grown up on John Wayne films and directed by Ford, all of that Americana, the beautiful scenery that showed in those films, cowboys, etc. This whole thing, going and doing cattle drives, that is Americana. That is America. That is your history. Resilience, resilience, resilience. Go west, make your fortune. Resilience. You know as well as I do, like for argument's sake, when in certain states the extreme of temperature, how did the pioneers survive in the extreme hot weather? How did they survive in the extreme cold weather? It's resilience. My concern is that we're looking at a lot of young people where there is no resilience, where this victimization culture, and then it's pushed by parents. Yes, dear, what's the problem? We'll give you everything, and hopefully you'll be fine. No, there is these things called discipline. There's things we put in place to when they grow up, they have that resilience. And Bob, I am deeply concerned about the mental health issues that we are beginning to just reveal. And we had, I won't name them, we had two mental health practitioners on who were just absolutely superb. And listening to this, Bob, I want to say this. This is important. It backs up what Melanie was saying as well. When you are hearing a mental health specialist turn around and said, in my training, when I trained, these were our textbooks. I am now dealing with having interns coming into my practice. And I began to say, well, hold on a minute. What are they being taught in the institutions where they are training in inverted commas? She then grabs hold of the textbooks and starts going through these textbooks and saying, hold on a minute. This is deeply questionable, because we use that phrase, programming, ideology. The whole thing of when we look at, discussing counseling is another huge subject in itself. But when you've got problems and you want to sort things out in your life, and you say, well, I'm going to go and see a mental health specialist, I'm going to go and see a counselor. The whole idea is to then see these people on their way in a positive manner, overcoming what they feel that is challenging them at that time, and to then help them to move forward. It comes down to resilience. It isn't about affirming them in their particular feelings at that time. Just say this: I am not a doctor. No, I'm not a mental health specialist. At times I've been a dear help to certain friends, and there are times when you've sat them down and told them some hard truths and say, if you stay in this kind of thinking, this is not going to enable you to progress in life at all. Now, that kind of statement I've just said doesn't go down very well within certain people, where it's all about inclusion. We've just got to have a collectivization of a mindset. It's all about love. And why can't you be nice?
Yeah, well, that's very well said, because it's exactly what this is about. It's an ideological and a cultural thing much more than it is a medical thing. And they're willing to sacrifice these kids, particularly young people. And again, adults suffer too, but adults are at least old enough to make decisions if they want to, butcher themselves. But what they're doing to kids medically in the name of their psychologicals is ridiculous. Doctor, I want to bring up some images here. Start at the top of the screen. Dylan, go ahead and pull that up. This is the Crane, go all the way to the top, if you would. This is the Crane Center, and I'm sure you're probably familiar with them. I don't know much about them other than this. This is what I found when I wanted to look for some of those forearm photos. And I found something much, much more disturbing. Now, I'm going to warn everybody before we scroll down on this page. And let's enlarge this too. I'm going to make this full screen here. This is going to be graphic. And I want you to tell us what we're looking at here, doctor, if we can. So scroll down, Dylan, to, okay, this is phalloplasty surgery, which is the creation of a fake penis to be stitched onto a female and connected and so forth. So just to kind of let people know what we're about to look at. Now, again, this is graphic, not for any particular reason other than the science of it all. So and the horror of it all, quite frankly. Dylan, scroll down, if you would, and we're going to start with, keep going to the first set of images there. Okay, these are just some of the forearms. This is mild compared to some of the things that I have seen with respect to forearms, but you can see the you know, in the 6 months post-op photo there. Can you zoom that, Eddie, Dylan?
And of course, you know, it begs the, you know, pointing out that they are going to put the very best photos on their website, much like plastic surgeons. They are going to show the best case scenario, because certainly nobody wants to show the things that have gone drastically wrong.
Thank you. And look at that. You can see flesh, muscle, sinew, all gone from the forearm of this individual. And she's right. That's one of the best photos. Okay, go back to the main page there now, Dylan. We're going to scroll up and it's going to get far more graphic. All right. So scroll down a little bit more. No, down. Yeah, there we go. Keep going down with the new stuff. See if you can frame that a little bit better on the top of the screen. Are you able to move that header or not? There you go. There you go. That's what I need to see. Okay, keep scrolling down. There's a few more forearm photos. Keep going, and then we're going to get to the real graphic stuff. Here we are. Okay. Now I want people to see this. What you're looking at there is not a penis. Right, doctor? You're looking at something else that has been fashioned to create a fake penis. Tell us what we're seeing there. And yes, I know it's graphic, but Dylan, feel free to zoom in on this because I want to focus on a number of picture or elements of these pictures. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah. So what you're looking at is fashioning a penis out of a full thickness skin graft. And, you know, I will tell you this photo is graphic. It is a very best case scenario. It looks like, frankly, and to not be crude, but it looks like, you know, this person was the lucky recipient of fashioning something that is not of normal size to begin with, because this is not representative.
No, stay, Dylan, stay on the other photo. I want to come to that after. Thank you.
But yes, you see this fake penis, so to speak, but what you don't see is what then has to be done to that afterwards, because that is not functional. That does not have erectile tissue that is going to get hard and rigid for penetrative sex. You have to have a prosthetic for that. So you're fashioning tissue to make something fake. You have the scar tissue. You have compromised blood supply. You know, lots of times in these surgeries. And then once this is all healed, if it truly does heal properly, then for it to be functional for penetrative sex, then you have to put in a prosthetic. And a prosthetic is, yes, a penile pump or one of those malleable devices that allows the structure to become rigid. And when you're dealing with a mechanical device, one or all parts of that device is going to fail at some point in time, and you have to replace it. So you're subjected to multiple surgeries.
So, doctor, the other part of this that I'm focusing on here, and I'm going to take it off the screen for a second here, just because, again, nobody really likes looking at this, this horror, this again, Frankensteinian-like type of abomination. But now let's take our focus off of the fake phallus and look at the thighs. Look at the quadriceps of this individual. This is incomprehensible. Yes. Look at how much damage was done to the healthy legs of this individual to harvest enough flesh to make a fake penis so that this psychologically disturbed person can create that and try to connect that. You
Correct.
said this
And keep
early
in
on in
mind,
the
this is one of
conversation.
their better pictures because they put their best case scenario up there. So
Well,
this is
not only that,
considered best
Doctor,
case scenario.
let Dylan flash to the next picture now. Actually, go back to the main screen. And because I want people to see the caption, go back to the main home screen there that we pulled this up from, Dylan, if you could. Okay, see that next to the picture of the fake penis, next to that you see, and can you zoom in on what the caption is underneath that picture of that thigh on the right side? Can you zoom that a little bit? And maybe the setup. Okay, a little bit. Keep going. Okay, I don't know if everybody can see that or not, but what it says underneath that graphic is well healed. The first one is 1 month post-op where the thighs are being, cut up. And then next to that is quote unquote well healed. Doctor, I'm no doctor. You tell me, does that look like a healthy thigh? Does that look like the leg of a healthy person? It says well healed.
Yeah. Yep. So well healed means that the tissue doesn't have any superficial compromise. It doesn't have evidence of infection, or this is considered well healed if you are if you're harvesting for something pathological. I mean, well healed is in the eye of the beholder. It's clearly disfigured.
It really is. And that was the point I wanted to make here, that none of these people are ever, after their surgeries, well healed. They're not, if I break my arm and they reset my arm and my arm goes back to full function, it's well healed. In my opinion, that person's leg is never going to be well healed to the point where it was what it was before.
Right.
And nor any of their other body parts, and in particular, the ones with the intricate functions that have to be, as you pointed out, connected and so forth. And and it's just it's an abomination. And the idea, again, that more and more surgeons, I don't know if it's more and more, but too many surgeons are willing to do these things to collect the fees rather than sending somebody with a disassociation between their mind and what their body is to somebody to heal the mind. They send them to a butcher to mutilate the body instead. It's just barbarism. I'm out of time here. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, if you could, each of you, just to close. I've got another guest coming up here, but Mark, just your closing. And when do we get to see this film that you're making of Doctor?
As soon as possible, Bob. We've still got a lot to do, and I'm going to leave Melanie to draw our attention to a website. The title of it is still, in many ways, is still to debate about our project. But first of all, I want to thank you for being so, just illustrating the importance of this graphically. This is not just done just to shock people in the morning. It is actually to shock people into realizing this is what we are dealing with, Bob. And we would appreciate people's continued prayers for this and on what we are doing, because there's more and more on a personal level as I'm looking into this, the concern of the mental health. I just view this whole thing as absolutely evil, and I just thank you for the fact that you are very much taking this seriously as well.
And I appreciate that very much from you, Mark. Thank you. And Doctor, give us your closing thoughts on this, where we are right now.
Our website is imageunshaken.com. And it is still under construction. We've done things a little bit backwards. We started on the documentary and then figured, well, we probably needed a website. So imageunshaken.com. You can drop us a line. As I said, it is still in development. It should be up and running, here in the next coming weeks. But we will be. We've had a number of individuals and organizations who have wanted to donate to this cause. So we are actively setting up a 501c3 as well to help develop and give back to the community as far as education and setting up training programs for pastors and mental health practitioners, and giving back to the community through this effort. So imageunshaken.com. If you drop us a line there, then we can send you out a newsletter, when everything is up and running. And if you are so inclined to donate at that point in time, all of the information will be in the newsletter.
Doctor, I really appreciate Dr. Melanie Crites-Bachert and Mark Sutherland making that documentary on her. I appreciate you both very much, and I hope this is the beginning of more conversations because obviously we need to open many more eyes. And when that film comes out, I know it's going to open a lot of eyes. Thank you both very much. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. There you go. Thank you to Melanie and to Mark Sutherland. Okay, my next guest is waiting in the green room. We're going to take a very short time out here so that we can transition, no pun intended, but we can move on to the next. Oh my God, that was a terrible line. So we can move on to the next conversation. America 250. We're going to celebrate it in Columbus with our friends at AFP. That conversation is coming up next. Stay right here. Short time out. Strictly Speaking Unfiltered.
Maps on the table, coffee gone cold, circles in red ink, stories you were told, whispers in a stairwell, names you never say, every move recorded, filed and tucked away. You talk like you're taking out shadows, like it's just checking a box, moving on. But every face you erase in your diary stays burned in the back of your thoughts. You talk like it's easy, like breathing, like the world turns right when they're gone. But you can't wash off what you're dreaming when the night drags you back to the start. Headlines on loop, heroes for a day, flags on the screen, static in the gray, glory in the briefing, spit shine, sharp smiles, then quiet in the mirror, you flinch every time.
All right, back after that little short break. Like I said, I wanted to give us a little bit of breathing room. Nope, that's not the one. That's the one I wanted right here. A little bit of breathing room between conversations. Thank you to Mark and to Dr. Crites-Bachert. That is some eye-opening stuff. And again, I hope everybody understands the reason for showing the images we just did. If we don't confront what is going on, honestly, with that, and it just hit me again a little bit harder again because we're in this ridiculous Pride Month nonsense, and seeing that Jennifer Lopez video and telling everybody, and who was it? Muriel Bowser, I think, the mayor of Washington D.C. Actually cut a video yesterday or on Monday saying Happy Pride Month from the gayest city in the world, talking about Washington D.C. And then I believe it was her who said, we know you deserve more than just a month. There should be pride, LGBTQ pride should be celebrated 12 months out of the year. I'm just mind blown by that. Because it isn't about celebrating somebody's sexual orientation. It is about grooming and indoctrinating kids into adopting or trying to live and transition into a deviant alternative lifestyle that is dangerous and unhealthy for them. And that's what this whole thing is about. The recruitment aspect of it is what is so dangerous. And I hope everybody understands that. There's nothing phobic about it. It is genuine concern for the well-being of young people who are targeted in ways that none of us were ever targeted when we were younger. So it just needs to be said. All right. So I'm looking forward to that documentary coming out, and we'll keep you posted on that as time goes on. Much closer to coming to fruition is June 22nd, and a huge event that is coming up down in Columbus, and it is being sponsored and hosted by our friends, represented by our next guest, Donovan O'Neil, the state director of AFP-Ohio. That's Americans for Prosperity. Let's bring him up. There he is, Donovan. Oh, looks like we caught you in the car today, huh?
Yeah, this silly legislature in Columbus, they like to do mini lame duck sessions. And so I'm headed down to Columbus this morning, but wanted to take a quick pit stop. What's more Ohio Bob than Bob Evans, right? So take a quick pit stop, grab some Bob Evans, join you for the show to make a big announcement, and then I'll be on my way to
I love it.
swear.
I love it. Although I wish I was there having some of those pancakes with you. Bob Evans pancakes are legendary. Anyway, okay. Donovan, yeah, big announcement. Like I said, it's coming up on June 22nd. You gave us kind of the sneak peek, if you will, a little bit last week when we talked, but we got a lot more information now about what One Small Step is going to be on the 22nd. Take it from there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to announce our initial slate of speakers, and I've got an invitation I'm gonna wrap up with here as well. See if we can get one more added to the list. But the whole theme of this event is one small step, and so the people that we're featuring are ordinary Americans who have done extraordinary things, ordinary Ohioans who have done extraordinary things, took one small step for the future of this great nation. And so I'm honored to say that we've got American veteran, an ambassador for a variety of good causes, including the Gary Sinise Foundation, and an action star. Believe it or not, when you actually learn a little bit about his story, you'll say, "Wow!" Brian Anderson. He's a veteran, a military veteran who has served our country, and we're honored to have him serve as sort of the inspirational aspect of our program, overcoming adversity, overcoming challenges and odds. Brian will bring a powerful close to our program on that day. But we also have Kelly Williams Bowler. I always get her last name wrong, and I have to apologize.
I do too. I changed the order of those two. I do the same thing.
I have to apologize to her for that. But Kelly is actually a mom on a mission. She's from Akron, Ohio, and her story popped in national news several years ago, but she continues to be an ambassador for the cause. Long story short, Kelly put her kids from one failing public school district into a public school district that had better outcomes for her kids. She was jailed for that, Bob. She went to jail because she put her kids in a better public school than the one that they were assigned to at birth. It's crazy stuff, but she took one small step to put her kids into a better educational outcome, and we're honored to have her join us for a portion of the program.
That's
and then,
great.
Of course, I'd like to ask. We have a few other folks, but I'd like to ask, most importantly, Bob, would you be game for keynoting or kicking the program off for us? I should say, kicking the program off and setting the stage. I know you love America. You're one of the biggest patriots I know. Would you be willing to start the program for us and just level set the venue, level set the 300, 400 people who'll be in attendance, and help them understand why this country's so great and why she's worth defending for another 250?
I played baseball for a number of years in my youth, but I never hit leadoff ever.
All right. We'd like you to lead us off.
Eddie Lofton, I would be honored to. Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. And I mean that legitimately. I'm honored that you're asking me to kind of try to set the tone for the day. I don't know what that looks like yet. You and I will confer a little bit more. I do love the one small step theme of this whole thing. And I love your comparison there not comparison, but your example there of Kelly. That is one small step that somebody took for her child, and it is going to have ramifications for everyone. That's my view, or just observation of what one small step really means. Something that one person may have done for themselves or for their family or for a cause that's really smaller and very tight around them, but then has an impact on people more broadly in a community or in an entire state like this. What step did somebody take that really helped everyone or a lot of people? That's what one small step means to me. So if I can help set the table there and get somebody on base and have some other people knock us all in, I'm honored to do so.
Yeah, that'll be great. And that's really what this night is all about, right? We're going to put the partisan differences aside. We're going to, we're an organization that loves politics. We love policy, but June 22nd in Columbus, that event is going to be all about honoring the Americans who came before us. Oh, we're going to have Abraham Lincoln, by the way. We're going to have a number of famous Americans joining us as well for meet and greets. And so it's about honoring those folks, right? The people who got us to this point, these first 250 years. But then really, right, if you're a person of faith, you're probably familiar with altar calls or, confirmation or affirming your faith. We're gonna challenge folks during this program to take a step to ensure that this country can exist for another 250. That's all we're asking of folks is join us, take a little time out of your day, hear from some inspiring speakers, and then make that commitment. It doesn't have to even be with us, Bob. I'll be honest. We've got plenty at AFP for people to do, but if we can have people leave that event and go register voters in their community, go give back to a local, civic organization that's doing good in the neighborhood, right? If we can get somebody inspired to step up and challenge the status quo like Kelly did, right? We can get someone like you, right? The next Bob France or Jack Windsor out there, right? Who says, hey, I'm going to speak a little truth to power, and I'm going to use my voice to inspire others and elevate others to be able to do that. If we can inspire that at the end of the night, that's going to help solidify the future of this country for the next 250, and it's going to create some really good opportunities for years to come.
And that's so much of what it is. You just said it, for the next 250 people that we won't even see or know that were in some way, shape, or form enhanced or helped or aided or assisted by what we're doing today. It's about something much bigger than ourselves, and that's what some of the people will feature. As far as One Small Step, these are people who took steps that help people much, much further than their own causes, and that's what it's all about. So I'm so excited about it, and what you just said too. There are a lot of different ways to volunteer, a lot of different ways to get involved in helping improve your community and help, the Buckeye State. I tell people every day on the show, as you know, about BuckeyeBlueprint.com and things you can do with AFP, but there are so many other ways to volunteer and so many other things you can do, whether it be in campaigns or whether it be in, at the community level, city council levels. There are things that people can do to improve their communities, which then obviously piece by piece improve the entire state of Ohio the way that we want. So I'm really, really excited about what AFP is doing. And Donovan, I've got to ask you this before you go, and I know you want to get back on the road to Columbus. The registrations, I have told everybody, and in fact, I want to tell everybody who doesn't know, the registration for the event on the 22nd, I need you to register if you're listening to me via my registration page, which is now pinned at the top of both of my Facebook pages, Bob France and Strictly Speaking Unfiltered with Bob France, as well as our locals community page, which is connected to Rumble here. I want people to make sure that you register there so that you can be on our bus. Donovan, do you have any other information? People who have been registering over the last couple of days have said, how do I know how do I know when and where to get on the bus? Do we have any of those details worked out yet, or is that still forthcoming?
Still forthcoming. Well, we've locked in a number of buses from around the state. We got a specific Bob France bus. So Bob, you and about 54 of your best friends, strongest listeners, biggest supporters will have a spot. I'll work with you offline here. We'll get you the logistics, but the way I've got it set up, Bob, no joke, I just said, give us one bus for the Strictly Speaking Unfiltered audience, and Bob's going to fill it with 54 of his best friends to join us. So we'll have that set up. I'll work with you on what makes sense in terms of location, but it's available. And part of why we're doing that, right, is we know folks want to be able to get to places like this. Sometimes it's not feasible for somebody to drive, 2 hours to Columbus and then 2 hours back. If we can make it easy for folks to take that one small step and just get on a bus and then get off a bus and enjoy a good patriotic evening, we're happy to be able to do that. And we're blessed with the resources to do so, and honored to be able to partner with folks like you, Bob, because we know the people you bring are folks who have probably already taken that one small step, or because they're listeners, because they're partners with you, right? They have an infinite number of opportunities to take action, and you'll always encourage them to do so.
Yeah, it's going to be a great road trip. I haven't done a road trip with a bunch of friends on a party bus in a very, very long time, but we're going to call it a party bus. And the party is celebrating America 250. It's the 250th birthday party or anniversary, depending on how you want to look at it, but it's going to be a great time. And yes, so if you want to be on that bus, again, it is limited to 54 people. So you're going to have to register quickly. And if you're bringing a husband or a wife or another guest, make sure you put both names down so that, again, if I've got 150 people waiting for a 54-person bus, we got a problem. Let's get everybody registered so the first 54 are going to get on it. So go to that registration page. Thank you, Dylan, for throwing that up. You'll see it there. If you already registered under the general registration that Donovan gave us last week, there's a link there. It says already registered. Just put in your email address you registered with and the confirmation number that they gave you, and that'll register you under my name so that you can be a part of it and be on our bus. So anybody who's listening who wants to make sure you're on that bus, make sure you follow those steps. All right. Donovan, great information. I'm so excited about this. I love the speakers. I love the fact that Kelly Williams Bowler and Brian Anderson and others are still being. By the way, you mentioned President Lincoln. I did an event last week up in Oregon, which is near Toledo, Northwest Ohio.
Mhm.
I was not keynoting. I was speaking and emceeing, and I had the pleasure of introducing our first president, George Washington, in full regalia, but he was dressed not as President Washington, but as General Washington. And he did a first-person recounting of the crossing of the Delaware and what that meant to winning the Revolutionary War, to literally winning our freedom. I'm telling you, the gentleman's name is Ken Hammontree. He's so into character. You cannot call him Ken when he's in his regalia. You call him General Washington or President Washington. I'm telling you, he told a story that had 220 people in that room, Donovan, on their feet. First person narrative. If you want, if we're going to have Lincoln there, we might as well have Washington there as well, because that could be something special.
No, honestly, please connect me with Ken. Give him my numbers, my email, whatever.
Yeah.
We're actively looking. We want to have historical interpreters, reenactors, folks to be part of that. In fact, one of our volunteers asked if he could come as Uncle Sam. I said, absolutely. And find me a Rosie the Riveter as well. So I think, if I'll put this out there too, Bob, if you or any of your the Strictly Speaking viewers know of folks or can think of somebody, from sort of, Americana, American history, American icons, that would make sense. Let's get them down there. Let's bring them. May not have a speaking slot necessarily for everybody, but we're going to have hundreds of guests there. There's lots of opportunities to socialize and mingle. And, I think just having some of our American heroes present in spirit to join us for this event makes it that much more powerful and exciting of an evening.
Yeah, it's going to be inspirational. I think people are going to leave there fired up about their country and fired up about the mission before us in order to help, like you said, prepare for and ensure and guarantee another 250 long beyond us. Donovan O'Neil is the state director of AFP-Ohio, putting together a phenomenal program. Again, not every state has one of these. What are we? Your 6th out of 12? I think you said this.
DC's not a state yet. They did get one. We'll be the 7th. I think we're the 7th stop, but we had to do one for the capital.
Amen to that. And it's going to be a great time. So again, make sure that you are registered. Go to either one of my, and if you receive my newsletter, my Strictly Speaking This Week newsletter, I put that in there as one of the action items this past Sunday, 2 days ago, which was get on the bus, 3 days ago, get on the bus with a link there too. So if you go back to the newsletter, you'll find the link too. I'm trying to put it in as many places as possible so people know where to go to join us on Monday, the 22nd down in Columbus. Donovan O'Neil, thank you, my friend. You may commence on the rest of the trip down to Columbus or continue it anyway. And I hope you had a nice break. And thanks very much, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bob. We'll see you soon.
You got it. There you go. Donovan O'Neil doing the work of the people of the state of Ohio, to be more precise. Wow. That was a lot. And if he not told me that President Lincoln was going to be there, I probably wouldn't have said anything about Washington. I didn't think about it, but that would be very, very cool, especially if there was a chance for him to give the presentation. I will promise you this. Oh, look at that. Is that for my event? Yeah, I've got a few pictures of myself with General Washington from that event in Oregon. I don't know who that particular person is in the pic, but that's the general. And if you go to my Facebook page, Dylan, I think you'd actually see a couple of them, because Kirsanow was there. Peter Kirsanow and I spoke together at that event. And obviously General Washington stole the show from both of us. Pete was, I gave the intro speech, and then I gave some introductions of Pete and others, and General Washington, just like I said, just a home run. If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see it's about, I don't know, 7th or 8th post down. You'll see some of those pictures. I think I might have Pete with the general as well as me with the general. And how I'm speaking right now, by the way, is a little bit weird because, there's me talking to general. Okay. I was told this when I arrived at the event. Don't call him Ken. Refer to him as General Washington or as President Washington. Look at him. And he plays the part to perfection. He literally told the story of the crossing of the Delaware, and I retold the story to a very, very small extent on my drive home on last Friday morning. I went live from my truck because the recorded program that I had put together for that Friday, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to be in my studio Friday morning, it didn't air because of the rumble, whatever. So I went live and I told the story because it was fresh in my head from the night before, to the extent that I could, of what the general told the crowd there. Like I said, he got at least 2 standing ovations during that event, or one during and one at the end. But if you think you know the history of the Revolutionary War and how we just, big, bad, mighty American colonials, and the colonial army got up and fought the British regulars and beat them. And, that's kind of what we learned just in school from a general point of view. You don't know the story until you know the history and the specifics of what happened. Who our fighters were, how old they were, how outgunned they were, how outmanned and undermanned they were, and what they had to endure in the name of. You and I can. I'm sorry to be a little bit over the top on this, but since we were just talking to Donovan O'Neil about America 250, it's kind of just gets a little bit. It hits you a little bit harder when you think about these things, especially when you learn some of the things I did. I mean, I was that day years old when I learned about the true nature of the crossing of the Delaware and the circling of Trenton and what that meant to the larger war effort. So we all have to learn a little bit more as time goes on. But we talk about America because we have seen America for our lifetimes. We know what liberty looks like. We know what the country was built to be and what it was founded upon, because it was founded 250 years ago. And then the Constitution ratified, 237 years ago, whatever it was, the distance, 249, I guess, or 239, I guess it would be, because it was in 1787. Anyway, my point being, we have the point of reference of that history and what we have built to go on when we talk about how much we love America and we love freedom. Those men and those young boys, those kids who went to fight the Brits, particularly in Trenton, and particularly crossing the Delaware, they didn't have that point of reference. They were sailing into the unknown, marching into the unknown. Can we beat the mightiest, most fearsome army with the most extraordinarily lethal navy in the history of humanity at the time, the British Empire? The British army and the British military was like the most formidable thing anybody had ever seen. And they didn't know what the outcome was going to be. Give me liberty or give me death kind of was like, yeah, I mean, I might get liberty at the end of this, or I might die trying, but we're going to try. If that doesn't inspire, then something is wrong. If that doesn't fire you up, just try to picture it today. Try to picture us being, I don't know. It's impossible, I guess, to say, we're born into a country dominated, say, by the Soviets, the Russians, or the Soviets back when the Soviet bloc was intact. And a bunch of people here tired of being, oppressed by that monstrosity, by that authoritarianism. Bunch of us gathered together in our garages and planned some sort of a coup to gather men and kids and young people to try to push back. I'm making something up here just because we can't be in the shoes and in the brains and in the hearts of those who did it for real when the British, still own the colonies. And we said, not anymore. They're ours, and this is our land, and we are no longer going to pay taxes to you to use it. And we're no longer going to be under your rule or under your thumb. We're going to be free. We're going to be. You can't. I can't. All we can do is just sit here and guess and tell weird stories about it, or make weird analogies to it, like I tried to do there. We can't put ourselves in those shoes. So we have to listen as closely as we can to the lessons history teaches us about that. I don't know. I'm just fired up about it. So America 250 is, and by the way, I'm going to have General Washington, Ken Hammontree in the form of General Washington on this show, maybe as early as next week, or maybe I'll time it up a little bit closer to the 22nd when we go down to Columbus. But I'm going to have him here, and he is willing to do it, and we'll have him on, and he'll tell us the entire story of the crossing of the Delaware, or who knows, maybe more. And he does all of this from memory. He's not reading a script. He doesn't have a slideshow. He's talking to you as General Washington and talking about his conversations with General Knox and others who were obviously integral to that, to the Battle of Trenton and what led to the turning of the war. So just really remarkable. All right. What do you say we pop in here to the into the chat room here for just a minute or two before we are done and see what people have to say about some of the things that we were just discussing. I'm going to go random here because I don't have anything in order. And I don't think you started anything, did you, Dylan? Yeah, Dylan was busy popping stuff up on the screen, so we don't have any real direction here. So we're just going to pop in as a few of the comments. Lisa, Kelly Williams Bowler was rightfully convicted of felonies. She knew it was illegal. Interesting way to start here, Lisa. Kelly Williams Bowler is, a woman who cared more about her children than an oppressive rule that said you can't put your child in a place where that is safer and better and healthier for your child. That's a hero. That's a hero. And the fact that Kelly Williams Bowler was willing to be a hero and willing to be convicted, if you want to continue to phrase it that way. She knew what was right and what was wrong, and she did what was right for her child, even though it might have been wrong for her. I think that's huge, and her story is going to be fantastic. Let's see. Lois Irene, I grew up near Williamsburg, Yorktown, and Jamestown. The Colonial Triangle. Learned all about this in history. Good for you. Most people do not. Invite Terry Smith to the 250 Columbus event. He does a great historical oration of multiple patriots. Yes, he does. I've had Terry. He was at our ICE party. He did a speech at our ICE party, and I have seen him do multiple individuals. He did, who did he do? Paul Harvey. He did Paul Harvey and what it means to be a police officer, because we did our event, which was specifically the pro-law enforcement event. So yeah, Terry Smith is amazing. What else do we have? Joanne. Some school districts offer enrollment. Okay, this is going back to the Kelly Williams Bowler story, and we'll get into that a little bit more another time. I don't want to get too in-depth on it now. By signing the Declaration of Independence was like a death sentence or loss of livelihood. That's correct. And they did it anyway. They knew what they were getting into. They didn't know what the outcome was going to be. We sit here armchair quarterbacking or hindsight with 2020 vision, that comes with hindsight, knowing that it all worked out. Didn't work out for them. Not all of them anyway. And they had no idea what they were going to end up being. That's a great point. Yes, Terry is great. She didn't pay tuition, Bob. That's theft. That's not as simple as that at all. At all. We'll talk more. In fact, I'll have her on. You know what? Thank you. Lisa, was it? Yes. Thank you, Lisa. I will have Kelly Williams Bowler on right here on this program. I'll see if I can do it before the 22nd and get a kind of a preview of her story and her retelling and her recounting of it firsthand. So that way it'll solve all of it. That, my friends, is the PIM, the politically incorrect mechanic. He's a mechanic, so he does order transmission, sometimes called tranny fluid for short. So when he writes, I ordered a case of tranny fluid the other day for his garage, it's probably true. The second part is probably not true. The guy showed up with a case of Bud Light. That's our guy. That's our buddy. That's our pal. That's Charlie of Charlie's Auto Repair. Let me get that off the screen real quick. Yeah, so you can see that phone number. You need to get your tranny fixed, your transmission fixed. He'll replace the whole transmission. He'll transition your car from, I don't think he can replace the transmission and turn a Ford into a Chevy or a Chevy into a Toyota. This is going into all kind of the wrong places. If he could just take an engine out of one and put it into another and make it an entirely different vehicle, I don't know if he'd want to Mengele his way through that. But I don't think you can put a Chevy engine in a Ford or a Ford engine in a Chevy and have it actually become the other. If you do want to have your car fixed, if it's broken, if it needs a new transmission, if it needs a new axle, for crying out loud, or if it needs new tires, whatever your needs are, maintenance, preventative maintenance, repairs, electronic issues, Charlie has got you covered. In Lakewood, 216-470-0170, 216-470-0170. And do me a favor, if you show up at his place after you make your appointment with your card, you see him sitting outside the garage drinking a Bud Light, I want pictures of it. I want pictures of it. Because he just said somebody brought him a case of Bud Light, and if he's drinking it, we need to know that. He's MAGA all the way. He'll give you a discount too. He'll give you a discount if you are a veteran, a current military, active military, if you are a first responder, or if you are a concealed carry license holder. Get yourself over to Charlie's Auto Repair. All right. Thank you to Mark Sutherland and to Dr. Melanie Crites. I'm going to do it again. Bachert. I keep wanting to say Bachert. A surgeon with principles and with morals and with the right mindset of do no harm. Fantastic story. Great conversation. If you missed it, or I'm not saying if you missed it, if you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody who may have missed it. Okay. Don't forget, before we leave and before we click sign off today, hit the like button for us. If you're going to watch it later on, if you're watching it on replay, slam that thumbs up button, slam that notifications button, hit that bell for me, and hit the locals button as well so you can join us inside the locals community for private conversations and special opportunities. Thank you, everybody. Be well, be safe, stay free. We'll see you Thursday morning right here, Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Bye-bye.